Hi everybody, my name is Alfie and I am Customer Success Manager here at How Now.
And I'm Flora and I'm a Customer Success Executive here at How Now.
Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar, How to Build Continuous Learning Cultures and Habits. Today, we're going to break it down into 4 separate sections. We'll look at facilitating a culture change for real, why content is king, creating engagement and learning habits, and lastly, driving learning continuity using How Now, where Flora is going to give us a bit of a demo on how she can create a really cool learning continuity program. So let's jump in. We're going to touch a little bit on facilitating a culture change for real. Culture is more than just a buzzword. It's a dynamic thing that's guided by your people. It's a dynamic and shifting landscape as well. It's not just about your workplace. It's everything from the cultural and socio-economic position of your organization, the context it sits within, and the personal development of your people as well. So speak to people and understand those cultural stop, starts, and continues. If you try and shift things rigidly, you're going to be met with rigidity. You reap what you sow. When you're creating a massive cultural overhaul, one of the most important things is to think about how you encourage more users to get engaged with this new platform. Ask people what's valuable to them and get them involved in the process of identifying those. If you think about some really good examples, especially around learning and development, we've got a couple of really good ones. Yelp, Pixar, and Airbnb all have really strong company cultures, and here's why. Yelp have something called stretch roles. This is where you'd have some additional responsibilities for your day-to-day role, which are slightly outside of your everyday accepted role. And these are the things that give you awareness of your personal development and perhaps give you some responsibility that might be outside of your comfort zone. This is a really good way for you to factor in those extra elements of learning and development into somebody's everyday role. And they're always thinking about what the next step is. Pixar have Pixar University, where they run accredited and very professional courses and programs around specific things that people want to upskill on. Pixar, for example, they have loads of content around animation, and lots of things around design and artwork, for example. And then Airbnb have a really strong company culture because they focus on the context that their organization sits within. They have something called fireside chats, where they bring in their leaders and their leadership, lots of CEOs from their organization and from other organizations as well, and musicians and other people without the organization. So it gives everybody a little bit of community, and it also creates a really nice context for the organization to sit within. Old habits need to die easy. If your current culture isn't working, resist the urge to copy and paste parts of it. Think of it as a brand new, clean slate. Think about having dialogue before decisions as well. If you don't know what's valuable to people, then how are they going to buy into change? Your people are your strongest leverage in this example. And it ties back into what we mentioned before. Gain some feedback from your users to understand your cultural stop, starts, and continues. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And what do you need to do more of? Think ahead. Don't just plan for day one. That is the day of launch, for example. During the implementation process, it can be quite easy to only have a very tunnel vision view of what you'd want your day one to look like. But think about context. Again, how are you going to then continue to build on top of it? Ensure that you're engaging people with the platform, for example, as soon as you've launched it. But how are you then going to continue to stimulate engagement later on down the line? Also, be your own biggest fan. Don't be afraid to make noise and shout about your new learning culture and a change to drive awareness. As I mentioned just now, your people are your strongest leverage. And if you're going to be able to rely on them to consume the content that you're creating, that their teams are creating, and that their managers are sharing with them, then they're going to believe that the platform shares a lot of value. And this is where we move back onto content. Content is king. And variety is the spice of life. A blend of macro and micro information and knowledge sharing is the best thing to focus on. It's not just about how to do the job, but how to participate in the field. Focus on creating content that makes your employees more well-rounded professionals, rather than just the tools to do their job. You also need to focus on what's unique to your organization as well. But it's all about adding value. There's a really good quote from my favorite TV program, Absolutely Fabulous. I don't want more choice, I just want nicer things. This means that giving people too much valueless information is exactly the same as giving not enough. People want to be able to see the things that are useful to them and that are really valuable to them. And this is where we talk about things that are, this is where we talk about a content audit. What's valuable to your users? Take a step back and be a little bit introspective. Take stock of what your users usually like and what they consume a lot of. If you've created a piece of content in a previous system or in your old LMS, for example, it's not necessarily going to work for you into this brand new platform. A content audit, as I mentioned, is a really good way to facilitate change and to review what works for you. And our platform like HowNow uses AI and machine learning to provide personalized recommendations as well. So whilst you're adding your valued content onto the platform, and you'll be assigning it to individual users or groups or the entire organization, for example, not only will they be able to see that content, but we'll also give them smart suggestions based on their job role, based on the context that they sit into and the channels that they've subscribed to and anything that they've seen before. This is where, as I mentioned, context is really, really important. You also need to think about, as we said, gaining momentum. People, if you rely on third-party content but don't add your own, that's a great opportunity for you to create some content that's unique to your organization. Third-party content is great, and it's a really good way of making sure that people stay engaged and that it saves you a little bit of time as well. But if you're able to share that at the point of need and just-in-time knowledge with your people, then they're going to be able to get a little bit more value out of the platform. It could be as simple as asking managers to all contribute 1 or 2 nuggets a month to ensure that more useful content for each of the departments is available on the platform. So we'll touch on putting the crown on your content. Audit your content and understand the types, lengths, and sources that people engage with. And think about how and where and why they access it. If your organization is particularly Slack focused, will microlearning benefit them? If, for example, your organization uses lots of emails, maybe they want to focus a little bit on longer lead and bigger programs. And let the machines help. HowNow uses AI and machine learning, for example, to offer and identify more of what works for your individuals. Don't rely solely on third-party content. It's a really good way of saving you some time and helping you to create really professional content based around certain topics. But it's also useful for you to add things that are unique to your organization as well. HowNow is not just another LMS, and we don't think that you're going to get the best out of the platform if you're thinking of it in that way. So what I'm then going to do is pass over to Flora, who's going to talk to us about creating engagement and learning habits.
Thank you, Alfie. So let's begin. We meet people where they work by tapping into integrations with apps they use every day. We don't like to swim against the current. If everyone's using Google, then we get on board with that. We have a really handy HowNow browser extension, which allows people to continue doing their habit, which is searching through Google, but we will surface all of our relevant content and have it next to it. So it's a lot easier for them to cross the bridge and start a new habit. You can use the platform for activities that bring people together and build a sense of community, whether that's a book club or movie club or even a HIIT class. Sell the platform and learning through fun first, and then you can make the habit more appealing. So maybe when you begin, you can have quests and competitions to build that engagement up. And then once they're used to using the platform daily, they'll then bring in learning aspects to follow. Keep their eyes on the prize by offering rewards and incentives for participation and progress. It's a simple psychological process like classical conditioning. Think of Pavlov's dogs. He got the dogs to create new behaviors based on getting a food reward. You could use that in this case. You could have on a Friday night, anyone who has performed really well, they get to come for a drink session. Or it can be other badges or certificates that we offer on HowNow. Use our discussions to drive social learning, as 70% of employees think digital adoption should have improved collaboration and prove them right. Our discussions let people collaborate in the right place with the right people at the right time with the right context. Allow people to learn from each other and learn from your in-house experts. Allow everyone to become a contributor. That way, everyone can be involved and it will increase engagement. Giving everyone the ability to share encourages more people to do it, which is always a win. So now we're going to move on to driving learning continuity using HowNow. So from movie clubs to shared playlists, think about all the ways how now can drive culture. You can have a playlist that has nuggets where people can pick a movie for the week, and then you can have the event set for a Friday. Everyone can meet up, watch the film, and have discussions and learn from it. You can also upskill people with learning pathways, and you can automate this so they get nudges to ensure that they keep this habit going. We use AI recommendations and email digests to automate continuous learning, which I'll show you in a sec. And sometimes all you need is the right initiative, which is where gamification enters the frame. So now we are on How Now. I will just show you briefly the For You section. So when you first log into the platform, you will subscribe to any channels you like and enter any skills you have. Then with the more use of the platform, the more the AI can recommend learning for you based on things you like, pages you visit, anything that's assigned to you. So let's just take a look. Anything of importance will be tagged with announcement or must do. And as you can see here, we've got Movie Club, which is a top pick, which I'll show you in a sec. So at the bottom here, you'll have recently added, which are all recommended for you. To the left, we've got channels, which you can think of as topics. So if you want a cultural hub, somewhere for all your organisation to go and be a bit more social and learn culturally, more like a personal development side, then we've got a channel here called Culture Club. We've also got one called Monthly Upskilling Challenge. So this is again more of a personal development, but it's gamifying and bringing engagement to the platform, which will only help in adopting a new learning habit. So let's take a closer look. Here we've got the Language Upskilling Challenge playlist. So if your organisation want to upskill themselves on a language, they could simply come to this playlist, select whichever language they're looking to improve on. Oh, sorry. And then once they land on the French playlist, let's say, they can begin by taking a self-assessment to work out which learning pathway they should be on. Then they can go through beginner, moderate, or advanced, or if they're an expert, they can select this one and they can teach others. So in all four of these learning pathways, they are upskilling themselves and learning something new. If we take a closer look into the beginner level, we break it down into sections. We've got nuggets, live classes, webinars, a variety of content to mix it up and make sure you're appealing to all audiences. If we take a look into session 2, this one is labelled Learning Material. And here it has links to books or textbooks from a blog post and a link to how to request from your learning budget. So you might like to have a monthly upskilling learning budget so that it allows your people to really develop and get the resources they need to progress. Now, if we look into a different kind of cultural element, which would be, let's say, a movie club playlist, this is more for a social side. We've got, say, April, it could be History Month themed. You could have a nugget where you cast your vote on a movie screening, and then you can have the event here. And if we take a look into April History Month, we've got it broken down into the 4 weeks, and it contains existing content of the nuggets explaining which film is going to be shown. If we take a deeper look into week 1 Dunkirk, we can see the discussion section here, which they can access by clicking on the show discussion button. And here they can begin to share ideas or feedback and grow socially. That's everything.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for joining us for how to build continuous learning cultures and habits. I'm Alfie.
And I'm Flora.
And if you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email or get in touch with us via our support chat. But yes, we hope you found it useful and yeah, enjoy.
Bye.